Hello, everybody, and welcome to our QA Financial Deep Dive Forum. I'm very glad that you can join us. My name is Matthew Crabb. I'm the CEO of QA Media and QA Financial. So as you know, I hope our focus is very broadly software quality engineering at financial firms. The challenges financial firms are facing, and the solutions they are adopting to accelerate continuous delivery and to manage change while ensuring quality as a priority. And so one of our key focus points is how financial firms, insurance companies, banks are responding to regulatory change, in particular increasing scrutiny by supervisors of standards of operational resilience, including software risk management. We've got some great sessions this afternoon in my time, and this morning if you're joining us from the United States. And for the first time in this event, what we're doing is we're zooming in on the challenges and the drivers of change in different financial services verticals. And we're starting with a session on the insurance industry, where perhaps new technologies such as AI are making perhaps more profound and far-reaching change possible than in any other financial services sector. So before we start, just one or two points of housekeeping so that you can get the best out of this platform. First of all, you'll see a red button to the top right of your screen for live support. And I have a colleague who is staffing that information point. If you want to click on it and you have a problem, they will be able to help you immediately. The timeline for the event is to the top left of your screen. If you click on the timeline, you will return to the menu for the day, and you can click individually on the agendas for each session to join each session. So after this session, please return to the timeline and you can join the next session. We are encouraging you to ask questions. We want the maximum amount of engagement from you today as you can possibly help us with. And to the right of your screen, you'll see the Q&A button. And we'll leave time at the end of every panel session for your questions. So don't wait for the end. Please just fire them in as they occur to you. And indeed, I might ask them as we go along rather than save them for the end. I'd like to thank our sponsors for the event today, because really without them, what we do wouldn't be possible. Applause, EvExperts, Inflectra, and Tricentis, and you'll be hearing from these companies as we progress through the event. And you can also visit their virtual booths. Again, if you go back to the timeline, you'll see to the right of your screen, virtual exhibition. If you click on that tab, that takes you to our sponsors' booth, and you can download material from their video and white paper content. And you can also ask for a meeting if you want to discuss with them further anything that you hear about today, or if you just simply like to meet them. That would be good. So please take the opportunity to visit that virtual exhibition. Click on any sponsor booth to see their videos, and you'll see the blue button for live chat if you want to talk to somebody. And then the meeting hub is under the virtual exhibition button on your main page to the right. And if you go to the meeting hub, you can see if you've got any invitations there for a meeting. And if you want to swap messages with somebody, live text chat, or set up a video call, you can. You can do that with other delegates, and you can do that with our sponsors. And we hope to, even though we're constrained by the limitations of digital events for the time being, and hopefully not for too long, but for certainly the next couple of months at least, this is a good way, this platform, of meeting new people and networking a little bit, making some new contacts. So please do that again by clicking to the right of your screen on the meeting hub button. So I'm going to start now our first session, which is on the insurance industry. And we've got three great speakers who I'll introduce very briefly because I'm going to ask them to talk a little bit more fully about themselves and their role, to introduce themselves rather than me reading a long potted bio. But very briefly, we have Anand Chawda, who is with Sunlife. We have Edosa Odaro, who is with AIG, and we have Ryan Burlage, who is with Tricentis. So I'm going to start with you, Anand. If you don't mind spending a few minutes telling us a little bit about your role. It's your new role, I believe, at Sunlife in Toronto, and you've moved from TD Insurance quite recently, where you've completed a transition program. Please tell us a little bit about the challenge that lies ahead for you, and what you've learned at TD, maybe that you've taken with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matthew. So in Sunlife, I've joined recently, and my current role is on the Agile leadership side. I'm helping Sunlife deliver a program that's building a data lake in AWS cloud that's going to take all the different type of data in the different sources that we have in Sunlife and put them into the lake. That's going to be structured, curated, and we are building a consumption layer on top of that. That's going to have some derived field from that data that we have in the lake that can be used for ad hoc analytics, machine learning, deep learning, and some regulatory reporting as well. So that's the goal. Program has just started, and I'm helping them build that. Previously, my role at TD, ran a $30 million program and try to address some of the challenges that we see regularly in quality assurance space. That is, longer running QA cycles, automation, agile mindset, cost and budgeting challenges on the QA side. So what happened was this program was started, and I joined them when the strategy was almost done. I went in, and these are some of the challenges that was told to me that they wanted to address by having a senior person in the team. So we looked at the strategy. We saw there there are some gaps. There are a few things that we can do that will optimize the QA delivery for that program. One of them was to automate. We did not see enough automation was built into the strategy. So I brought in that automation piece, and automation was so significant for this project because I'll tell you how, in just brief, how the architecture looked like. So it was an insurance. We were migrating a legacy platform to a new vendor-based platform for the policy administration system, where we are going to have all our policies. So the first goal is to move all the 2.9 million policies, which was active, pending, and cancelled as well, everything into the new platform. Plus, make sure when we go to the new platform, there are some transformations also we have done that are running fine. So it was a huge task. So how the architecture was built in TD, everything is spread over the enterprise. So the application used to generate from the branch application. So customer used to go to the branch, I want to buy insurance, or over the phone, I want to buy insurance, and there was a huge application that these guys need to fill, about 20 pages. So it used to take 45 minutes to fill in. And part of our testing, we needed a data. We needed to simulate the real life scenario. So we needed to fill that application and let the data flow from the middleware and other systems to our policy administration system. And then we test on that, the business rules that we have built. So this piece was taking the longest time. So one of the thing was not there was automating this piece. So I automated this, that reduced the 45 minutes time to 5 minutes per application. And we were able to run it in the night, and able to get that data, able to get those applications flow into our system. That was a huge help. Second thing I always focus on is shifting left. Shifting left and having a quality engineering mindset. So what we have done is, and the leadership was very supportive when we presented this idea, that we are going to work with the developers in their development environment, and I'm going to pair them with one of my tester who's going to look at how they are developing. Are they doing enough unit testing? Can we build some automation to help them within the development phase and find some defects early? That was the shift left approach. We have done that for that program, and that helped us hugely when we went into our QA cycle. In QA cycle, we planned 3 cycles just to make sure everything is hunky dory when we move into the prod, and we don't get any surprises. So when we did our first cycle, it was so good. We did not find. We were expecting to find too many Sev1s and Sev2. We did not find. We find a lot less. And when we went to the cycle 2, we did not have to run the cycle 3. Actually, we were finished our testing within cycle 2. So that saved a huge effort. Automation saved a huge effort. At the end of the day, the program was delivered before time, on budget, and with a huge quality, and it won Project of the Year award, WinTD, which is an annual award where all the projects from the enterprise participate, and there was 900 projects participating for this this award, and we were the one who got it. So it was a proud moment. So that's my journey. A recent journey has been.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of things that we'll come back to, topics that I really want to sort of, to discuss in a little more depth with the other guys on the panel as well. The challenge of data management, connecting data lakes to enterprise testing requirements, of course, AI, and where you see and where Sunlife sees the potential for the application of AI in testing, and of course in customer-facing applications. We know that AI is perhaps changing the insurance industry faster than any other business right now, so I want to come back to that. But before we move on to Edosa, perhaps, I just wanted to ask, because we were talking before the session, Anand, and you said that one very important benchmark of achievement in your automation transition at TD was reducing the proportion of project spend on QA. Could you tell us a little bit about that? I don't want to mention numbers in case you're not comfortable doing that, but if you are, I think it would be really interesting to putting you on the spot. But it'd be very interesting if you could share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever we do the planning for the QA or project planning, I think one of the concern that we have the cost of the QA. Right. Some places QA is not seen as an important part of SDLC, and there are different experiences. Some places are more mature than the others. As part of the last program that I discussed, we were able to save the cost by 10%. We were able to reduce what was originally planned and what we have delivered ultimately. That's actually one of the factor in our achievement, that we delivered before the less than what we budgeted for. How do we do that? Those are some of the things that I've discussed, but I can deep dive into that. But normally the industry looks at 25 to 30% of the project cost that goes into the QA. But once you optimize it, you can bring it down to 20% or maybe less.
That's a great number. But also, it's important, isn't it? Because, and again, it's a theme that we're going to be coming back to time and again today. Increasingly, heads of quality assurance, with the potential offered by new automation technologies, have to make a business case for those technologies that takes into account the upfront costs, but also the longer term savings. The CTO obviously wants to see savings through automation, fewer people, but there's an upfront cost. So your reduction from your target of reducing costs to 20% of project costs, that obviously doesn't include that upfront cost, but it's the basis for a business case.
Yes, so what happens when you work for bigger organization? You need to find the innovative way or creative way to do automation. You don't have to go with an expensive tool that's available. You can go with the open source tool. You can do the custom automation. That's also helpful. So one of the things we did for comparing the data, we found an open source tool, and we did the file comparison using that tool, and it was really helpful. It reduced a lot of manual effort. So it's not always the cost that you have to buy QTP or load runner or those HP expensive tools. You can go with the Selenium. We can go with any of the open source tool, and depends what is the context, what type of project you are running, what exactly you're trying to do, what is the area of optimization. All of those factors gives you a good ROI, and that helps you make your business case in front of executives.
Thank you, Anand. We'll come back and talk more about the business case and your points about, more general points about the Agile transformation, the Agile mindset a bit later, Anand. I want to spend more time on that. Edosa, thank you for waiting so patiently. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, new role at AIG, but your focus, of course, is on very squarely on data.
That's right. Yes. So thank you, Matthew. Thanks for having me. And yes, my role is head of data at AIG, and it's, well, like Matthew just alluded, fairly new. It's only been a few weeks, so it's quite new in the role. Prior to AIG, I had a very diverse sort of background. The most analogous to AIG was being head of data at AXA. I've been in Allianz as well, and I've been in a few other sort of organizations in the financial sector, but also broader. Been in organizations in media and in the public sector as well. So I think, from my sort of standpoint, I think my expertise is in sort of data and AI sort of transformation, and go back to, say, my experience at AXA as an example. I think the key thing is it's a huge amount obviously being talked about. There's a lot of hype and there's a lot of talk about technology. I think the one thing personally I find that most stakeholders I talk to are really interested in, and don't get me wrong, it's great to talk about obviously the tech. I think is very, very important, and it's good to talk about methodologies, but what ultimately then matters is what the outcomes are of tech. And when I look at these sorts of things, I like to start by really focusing on that value. What is the actual objective, really? I think that's a very powerful way to start to look at things. And there's a real temptation to obviously look at cost reduction and the likes on the tech side. But I think when you start off with the element of what is it actually in aid of, was it to what end, you can then go back and understand the return on investment they actually get in. And that's a real big focus area that I found in my experience. And, I mean, I can give you all sorts of interesting numbers. I mean, of course, and there's a huge amount of numbers of use cases in insurance that you can look at. But I think ultimately you can look at things like your fraud, sort of a big one, and look at things like that where you have hard numbers. You're losing out fraud-wise. We had a really good case in my previous life with regards to fraud, but there's also claims both at the point of sale, at the point of claim as well. I mean, fraud at the point of sale and point of claim. But there's a huge amount. There's so many business cases. You know, this price optimization. You know, there's a whole optimization around the actual user journey as well. But I think that ultimately, what I found really helpful is to be able to quantify the benefit that you're likely to get in any one of these individual use cases and actually fit. And I like what Anand was saying there in terms of you don't have to go for specific platforms and you can go open source. But some of the reasons, the ways you actually justify what you're doing is really understanding the actual outcome that's expected. You know, not only functionally, okay, I just need to get a bit of data from point A to B, but what was the time element? What's the speed element? What's the accuracy, the resilience? What's the, you know, what are those key things that are then also required to be considered within the broader sense of what that solution should actually feel like? And what is the potential outcome you're looking for? And if you can look at all of these factors and bring them all together, then you're able to then better understand what kind of solution you need to actually is appropriate for those outcomes to be realized. And I think that's a very, very important element. Yeah. The other thing to add very, very quickly is that, you know, I really like what Anand was saying there in terms of testing. I think for me, testing is obviously massive in terms of, you know, I almost look at testing from two perspectives, and this might be a slightly less traditional way of thinking about it. But there's the testing, which a lot of people would focus on, is very much around testing to do with delivery of new features, new products, etc. But I think there's a huge amount of opportunity to think beyond that and almost look at you know, testing as an element of monitoring the operational effectiveness. It gets even more important these days as we think about AI. It gets more important when you think about, you know, how you explain your models, how you explain the outcomes, but also how you monitor things like drift. You know, is what he said it would do day one continue to be the case, or are you finding, especially given what's happened now, it's a big obviously impact on insurance. So what's happened with COVID, you know, a lot of models have failed or started to deliver very, very strange results. So of course, it's extreme drift we're talking about here, but you do get a lot of graduation in how things diverge from what it's actually meant to be doing to what it starts to do within an operational or production environment. So that's my kind of broader sense of how I think about.
Yeah. And presumably COVID has also impacted the degree to which your customers, all customers, you know, want to make a claim or interact with an insurance company. So as well as producing different data results, the pandemic also is changing. Presumably it's accelerating digital transition at insurance companies. I don't expect you to sort of reference specifically AIG in that context, but do you get, is that what you're hearing, that there's going to be a continuing drive to accelerating continuous delivery?
I think I mean, your question really, that is a massive impact, COVID, in many ways. You know, when you think of digital transformation, you know, there's kind of two elements to it. I think a lot of time to focus perhaps a bit too much on the one. And the one element, I suppose, it's kind of front of the face is really the customer journey, and everyone talking about the digital, you know, from the way of delivering into customers. There's a huge amount of digital, obviously, is driven, especially so with COVID, on the internal, you know, workings of an organization. You know, just the ability to work from home, etc., is all driven by digital. But I think the other element of obviously COVID from an insurance standpoint, my focus within AIG is life and retirement, and you can already get a sense for, of course, there's a huge impact that COVID has had on what that feels like. Unfortunately, you know, lives are lost in the pandemic, and that's obviously had a, you know, very, very direct impact within life and retirement. But I think there's a broader sense of what the opportunity is. I don't think for most organizations are going to go back to where they were. We're almost on this journey now, and it's only a question of how far organizations want to take it and how much they want to do remain competitive. I think it's a completely different world now. I don't think there's any going back to exactly where we came from.
So two things I'd like to follow up on quickly, points you've raised, Edosa. First of all, this challenge, we hear this a lot from all sorts of different financial firms, from the largest to the smallest banks, insurance companies, asset management companies, the challenge of connecting data lakes to the requirements that they have for testing and development of software. So typically a large financial firm might have very different ways it's using different kinds of data, but it doesn't typically still have an enterprise view of data management that incorporates testing requirements, for example. How true is that, do you think, of the insurance industry, and how fast is that changing?
No, it's a great question. I think that it is, especially, I'd almost hasten to add that it's more acute and more of a very visibly so within data, and perhaps inherited from that within sort of AI as well. I think I think that within more traditional software development, is less the case, should I say. Of course, there's room to improve there too. But I think it's changing, and there's a significant deficit, from a data standpoint in terms of testing. We think about that specifically, but not only testing, like I say, on the feature delivery side, on the development side, but also on the sort of post, production operational side as well. So I would agree. I think there is a significant gap in where we really need to be. But I think the one thing that, certainly I'm seeing more and more organizations are thinking about, I spent some time actually consulting before I joined the IIG, and actually for an AI consulting firm. And, one of the things that, you sort of see happening within industry more broadly is really that people want to focus on value. And if you can really understand that value chain within that, testing becomes a really big part of that, because, the level at which you need to test something would depend on what is the, what's the accuracy level you're looking for, what's the resilience level you're looking for. There's so many aspects that come into, and more so, what really helps you, almost draw that sort of line of sight between value and what you're actually doing is using techniques like test-driven development. You want to start thinking about testing at the very, from the get-go, and it's a very powerful way to think about delivery, actually.
Okay, well, I was actually going to ask you about AI as well, but I'll come back to that later, because we've got a question. Somebody from the audience has asked a question that actually relates to your last point, Edosa. So I'll just read it out. Can Edosa give salient examples? I'm sure all your examples would be salient. Apologies for that question. Examples from the insurance industry of how monitoring QA testing can clearly help with predictive analysis.
Yeah, I think I sort of alluded to. I don't know if that was picked up before the question, but I think in terms of predictive analytics, it's significant, right? There's so much. The first thing to think about is you want to start off with almost what is the thing I'm actually trying to achieve here, right? So let's pretend that actually let's pick a random case. Let's pick a churn case as an example. So you have a set, that's a set thing that you know what your churn looks like. So that can be quantified in dollars, pounds, and whatever value it is. So you already know where that is, right? So when you get into predictive analytics, if you're talking about the development of your predictive models, clearly testing is a defined part of that, when you train your model. But I'm assuming that that's not the specific part we're talking about. Let's talk beyond we've deployed a model into production. What you want to be looking at is how's the model performing? And there's a variety of ways you can think of doing that. The first thing, of course, is you want to monitor performance on the model, as a given. But you can also do very clever things, like you can create gaps in your modeling. You can do A/B types of testing. You can stick your model on within a certain stream, and you can use a more traditional method on a different stream. You can create gaps. You can do time lapses and compare, what happened within this time window when the model was on, when the model was off. So there's a huge amount of variety in how you could test. Perhaps that's something that is a topic in its own right, and I'm very happy talk
Yeah,
to that
well,
in a lot more detail.
maybe I can suggest to George, who's asked the question, to try and sort of drop you a message and continue the conversation later another time. We've got still got 10 minutes, but we need to hear from Ryan, of course. Ryan from Tricentis, can you tell us a little bit again about your role and again about what Tricentis is doing with insurance industry clients? You've heard from Edosa and Anand about not only the companies they're working at now, but they've been working at very large insurance companies, different ones more recently as well. How typical are their sort of priorities to the priorities that your customers are facing? And in particular, I was very interested in what Anand was saying about the very clear cost benchmarks for savings that can be achieved through automation, which I'm sure is music to your ears.
Yeah. Thanks, Matthew, for having me on here. So I'm a customer success manager here with Tricentis. What I do is I help customers through their journey to kind of shift left, adopt digital transformation, see the bigger QA picture, not just testing alone, but quality as a whole, right? Because quality starts with development. And Edosa made a great point on, we have to do checkpoints. We have to verify what we're doing. Testing is a great way to do that, because we really want to trust somebody to build a skyscraper, right, without having it inspected. Because there's some executives that I've ran into that will say, well, we don't need testing, or they try to downplay testing. We write the best code, right? Well, would you trust to live in a building that wasn't inspected? And what would it be better to have that building inspected as it's being built or at the end? Well, if it's inspected at the end, it's going to take a long time, right? So it's just helping people realize these different nuances of testing and how it's there to help and what risk-based testing can do to help. So in my background experiences, I was a global QA manager for an asset management company, and I built it up from the ground up. And Anand, I started out with open source tools, Selenium, great benefit out of the gate with those, but with time, maintenance there's that maintenance creep that started coming up. So those things were kind of there. I have a huge portfolio. I work with different clients, from insurance to banking to asset management. So I kind of get to see everything. And the great thing about my role is that, these companies they haven't completed their journey, right? They're still in their journey. They need a guidance through that journey on how to get there and how to achieve these goals. And like to Edosa's point is that, it's great to start out with highlighting what is your goals and what you want to do. That is really key and important to really help kind of guide them along those ways and understand, what kind of those pitfalls are from that perspective. Some of the things I'm seeing with the insurance companies, right? We've had some pretty bad natural disasters here in the US, with the Texas oil or power outage going on with the ice storm that hit them pretty heavily. We had, some other really big storms in the Midwest where I'm from that kind of took things out. And it really put some stress on some of the systems that these insurance companies use. Like one customer of mine, their whole system went down, or their DR system went down. So when they were starting to bring stuff back in, they had to run some of their automation testing to validate that, the systems were working and the customers wouldn't be that impacted, or they would be able to resolve that before a customer experienced that, right? Because all in all, it's all about customer experience, right? And that's it's really important. And that's from data to, your interfaces, how everything interacts and really ties everything together.
Yeah, and then of course, this was something that Edosa was talking about earlier. Not specifically the customer UX, but he referred to it, and I was actually going to ask, what the metrics for that are. I mean, are there established metrics, Ryan, that your customers feed back into their test automation process that really help them identify what the ROI is in terms of customer success? Are they converting back into a monetary value?
Yeah, they absolutely are. Yeah, and that's also another part of the journey, right? Because depending on where they're at, it might make sense to do different types of metrics and see those metrics evolve, because you want those metrics to be meaningful and impactful to what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. So depending on where you're at in the journey, your metrics could depend, but really everybody wants to show the ROI, right? The benefits and the savings, cost savings from that perspective. And they tie that back, yeah. And that's how they get more money to advance their test automation and testing, expand out. You know, they have to do internal marketing, right? Because people, it's not like they just say, hey, we're going to do this Selenium testing, or we're going to do this third-party testing tool, and we're going to go, and people just jump on it. It's not that easy. You have to really market it and like get people excited about the new things that you're doing from that perspective.
And you've talked about some of the challenges that the insurance industry is facing in terms of the stresses that they face with the cyclical nature of the industry. Then you've got COVID, and then you've got natural disasters, which we see regularly, of course. These are things I guess you have to expect if you're in the insurance business. But structurally, in terms of technology, I guess the real frontier is in AI and machine learning, and the way that this can be applied to everything from claims management to the liability management algorithms. Where do you see, and maybe we can go to Edosa and Anand after we hear from you on this, Ryan, because it's a great way, I think, of finishing this session. Where do you see that frontier? What are your customers looking for, and what are the challenges in actually applying AI and machine learning? We've got issues with bias. We've got issues with how you actually test the outputs of bots. Where are your customers, and where are Tricentis on this curve towards the adoption of AI?
Yeah, definitely at Tricentis, we have some pretty cool AI built into our product Tosca. It's incredible how it's advancing and getting better. I think AI in general, as a whole, it's still in its infancy, and it's just getting better and better, but it's not where, personally, I think when I hear AI, what it means, I don't think it's there yet, because what we're still doing from an AI perspective is giving it rules and processes on how to handle things. And it's not quite there where it's just automatically learning and being able to do that as well. We still have to guide it, right? And we have to test and validate that. So that's my perspective on AI. I just don't think we're there yet, but it's definitely, it's in the future.
Can I go back to Anand just for some comments about where we are on the curve of AI adoption and the challenges that faces your team, that places on your team going forward?
Sure. So AI adoption is in Canada is actually really encouraged. There are companies that are coming up with these innovative products. One of those is Agile, and we implemented one of their product in reducing our underwriting efforts. So in insurance, what takes long time is underwriting, right? So it generally takes about 1 month to more for writing any policy. So this AI platform, what it does is automated underwriting. So what it does is obviously you need to work with business, and you need to experiment these platform. As Ryan said, you need to test, you need to make sure it's giving you the value, but and at the same time you should be able to take some calculated risk and implement these things. So what we did is we implemented this system. So this system, what it does is it collects the data, it learns with the data. We defined parameters there. It learns with the data, and if we have a perfect client, it doesn't have to go to the full underwriting process. It automatically approves you on the screen, and the policy goes into the policy system, and documentations we send it to the client. So and we review those things in the back end, and we monitor that these things are it's the tool is making the right decision. I know we are towards the end of the time, so
yeah, I'm afraid we've run out of time. I'd love to carry on. We've got other questions too about solvency, supervision, and embedding solvency requirements in software. Lots of great questions, and I'm sorry, Edosa, we didn't get the chance to come back to you and talk about AI. Perhaps we can get you all back for another session another time. We have to end it there because we have to run to schedule. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time.
Thanks for having me.
so much.
Thank you.